Howdy all you delicious people. I'm here today to review Season 1 of Castlevania. Normally, I would slow down my pace and I would normally go through and I would just watch individual episodes and then just review them individually. But, like, when looking at this very first season, I'm like, this first season is kind of short. I can probably uh, get through this whole first entire season, and then I might start cutting certain other seasons. I might just be cutting them in half, and then eventually just kind of get through them that way. Really, I would say that this is a fun adventure show. I know a lot of people will immediately say it's like, well, yeah, like this show does have quite a huge following, whichever, because I know a lot of people would know about Castlevanias. Like, if you go into watching, like, the Angry Video Game Nerd channel, a lot of times that guy would go through and play, like, Castlevania, the video games. Game Grumps, when they were to do the Mario Maker episodes, like, eventually they did a whole section of Mario Maker episodes that were made by or were done looking like the Castlevania like kind of setup. And so really like I've kind of seen bits and parts and places of people talking about Castlevania before this whole thing was to be a show. And so now that it's here, and now that I can watch it, because I've already technically watched this show all before, and some people might know that. Some people might have said, "Oh yeah, I watched your previous like reviews of so and so thing," but maybe he's gonna do this differently now. Maybe he's gonna approach this differently now. This time around, I'm going to approach this with actual like names instead of, "Hey, look at this monster." But I hope a lot of people will kind of also not berate me for not having a certain specific name of someone, because that will probably happen. Because really, there is just going to be a point where I'm just going to be like, yeah, he's Bishop. Yeah, he's Bishop guy. Or, oh, yeah, he's Vlad guy. Or, yeah, he's so and so. Because I just won't. Like, there are only 4 episodes, and there's quite a few people that, let's just say, don't last very long. So it's just like, why should I have to know everyone's name? Or, like, why should I invest in this show just yet? Once we actually get to further on seasons, I'll be like, oh yeah, like, so and so person, yeah, like, because 4 episodes just to, like, get a gist of everyone in this world is kind of a difficult task to do. But it is just kind of a setup season, which I guess I can appreciate that for. It's like a setup season to just kind of like, hey, like, we're going to spend a whole entire episode on Dracula and his problems, and then we're going to spend a whole entire episode on Belmont, and then we're going to spend a whole entire episode of Belmont saving people, and then the 4th episode is like basically like what we're going to transition into the next season, with showcasing someone that they continue to call the sleeping soldier in the show. So really, I've seen a lot of kind of vampire anime stuff that could seem similar to this. If you guys haven't seen the show Hellsing that is on Netflix right now, go ahead and check that out. It feels very similar, and you know how, like, Netflix tends to bombard people with a lot of the same things. Like, they go ahead and buy certain things that are similar. Like, if they have Castlevania, then they're going to bring a lot of other vampire stuff into the fold to desperately think that they can kind of clickbait people with a ton of stuff that seems similar. And Helsing is kind of similar in some way to Castlevania, but really it's vastly also different than in a lot of others. So definitely check out Helsing. Eventually, some point I might just review Helsing because I actually enjoyed that show. Like, I don't care if it eventually is Hellsing is only going to be a short thing on Netflix. Eventually, I will help people find it in the future if they have that problem. Hellsing is a good show. Check it out. But anyways, let's go into that double five timed territory because let's just go into spoilers because I've kind of set this up. Uh, so I guess teeing it up more. Belmont is a Indiana Jones like vampire hunter. He has a bow whip and he has a very small dagger or very small sword to his name. And he is a guy that at very first he's just looking for a way to get drunk and a way to fall asleep. Like that's all he cares about. Like this guy has been having a lineage of being tied to a family that has been known to go off and be people that go and take down monsters. But the whole thing of it is, this kind of feels like a Salem witch trial throughout a bulk of the show, where anybody that is tied to any something that seems like supernatural, they're immediately cast as a witch and they're burnt to a stake. Or shunned or hated or banished from wherever they had previously lived because they have some kind of tie into the supernatural, assuming that they would cause all this. Like it's basically like Walter Peck in the Ghostbusters movie, or it's in maybe better terms, it's kind of like J. Jonah Jameson in Spider-Man, where like J. Jonah Jameson would say like, well, from a robbery he probably caused, or like Walter Peck would just be like, well, I'm gonna expose them for like what they are because they caused that explosion, or they caused like maybe they've been sending all these spooks out to all these places, and then they extort people for money so that way they can keep what they have already like unleashed out to the world or whichever. Like that's what everybody is pointing fingers for all of these people of the supernatural esh like thing. We have like speakers that have this black magic like power supposedly, and they are to be shunned. They are to be banished. They are to have people that are going to have pitchforks and just like, yeah, I hate these guys. I don't know why, but I hate them because some preacher told me to. So really, that's a kind of a bulk of like some things about these people. And then of course we have Dracula, which I'll just get to that in spoilers because people have seen a number of different stories of Vlad the Impaler or Vlad Dracula, whichever. I might just call him Vlad in this or in this show, just because it seems like Vlad comes up more than the word Dracula. So if people are like, no, his name is blah 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 Vlad blah 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 Tepish, yeah, that's great. Sure, like I get it. But for safety's sakes, because this is 4 episodes, give me a break. Give me a good old break. Because really, I'm not going to go into heavily technical terms for 4 episodes. Once we get into this further, I will go out of my way to, because more likely there might be very few people that watch this review, which hopefully not. But if no one watches the review, that's perfectly fine. So let's go into that double five time territory. It's going to spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about the time we get to spoil this episode. So, in the very beginning of this, we have a woman that is heading to a castle. When you like, wow, that sounds like really gripping, right? Right out of the gate, you're just like, whoa, action, whoa, adventure, whoa. So, Lisa, who will eventually be called Tepish, is to go to this castle and desperately want to talk to this Vlad guy, whoever he could be, because Lisa wants to be able to use all kind of Vlad's resources to help her with her medicine. Because really, like, there might be a number of cures that Vlad has already been working on or has been close to be finishing on, or really Lisa can very much get closer to help people with, because she will be able to have a much more better resource than anyone else will. So, uh, Lisa is kind of asking like Vlad, it's like, well, hey, if you're done uh, putting people on wooden spikes, like how about we go on to like make medicine for one another and help people, and maybe that will like change how people feel about you. And so eventually Lisa is to eventually win Vlad over, and eventually they are to get married, and eventually they are to, I guess, have a kid with one another, I guess. Um, or eventually, no, I think eventually just Vlad, I think, already has a kid. Let's go with that. So Lisa is to be burnt at the stake by bishops because it seems like her medicine seems very much witchcraft. And I guess because she has new forms of medication to give people, like I think in one, like I think eventually, like in these seasons, I think they eventually go to showcase more about Lisa and her like lead up to her death at some point in one of these seasons. Like she uses kind of herbs and spices and stuff and whatever, like kind of weird kind of medicine that will make her very much like grow suspicions of people, that it's like, hey, like she's doing something weird here, so we need to say that she's just a witch and we just need to burn her at the stake. So Lisa is to be burnt at the stake and being accused of being a witch. And so this bishop is to burn this woman down. And so thereafter that Vlad is just upset about, of course, his wife being murdered, or being really just being murdered. Because to me, like, doing that is honestly just murder. So Vlad is to make his appearance to everybody as a face of flame, like just this like intimidating thing of flame, which I'm hoping or assuming will probably be the thumbnail of this review. So you'll see that early. And so Vlad is to tell the people, hey, you guys have 1 year to get the heck out of here, and or I'm going to destroy this entire town and make it pointless for anyone to ever live here again. Because you have taken from me, I will take everything from you. And so that just leads to the people just going like, oh, well, we just have 1 year then. And then like Vlad is like, is Vlad gonna remember? Like, is he just gonna like, is he really just gonna like count the days until like he can come after us? Like maybe he'll forget. Maybe like he'll just, just sleep on it and just realize what a mistake that was. And also like, dude, like we're an entire town. He's technically one man, even though a severely strong, immortal, dangerous man that can cause all kind of havoc and which have you, but still, these people are ignorant. So 1 year is to pass after Draculia's threatening, and Vlad Tepish is threatening, and so they basically ignore it. Actually, they celebrate 1 year. They're celebrating the 1 year that Lisa was to die and Vlad was to appear to them and threaten them. They're celebrating this moment. It's like, yeah, 1 year and we're still here. And Vlad is to come back yet again as a flamed like individual and say, you people are stupid. You people are dumb. I told you 1 year to get your butt out of here, to get your batukas out of my lands. And what did you do? Jack crap nothing. If anything, you're celebrating my wife's death. You're celebrating me threatening you. How stupid is that? So Vlad is just like, well, like, I guess you people aren't going to learn. So you people are dumb and just need to be fed to the wolves. So Vlad goes and pops out all of his bats, all of his monsters to go and just start willy-nilly consuming people. And so it seems every night thereforth, Vlad is going to send more monsters into the city for people to get nibbled and eaten and destroyed. So it seems like the most like there's several evidently there's several different kinds of bats that Vlad is to have. Uh, I'm assuming the more noticeable ones that are to go with uh, one big creature that they have towards the tail end of this show. Like I think there are these just twin bats. I think is the two bats that are to kind of like lead all the other bats onto the charge. But evidently, there's several other kinds of bats that Vlad is to have. I guess, especially when you look at the Castlevania video game, there are phantom bats. There are Darkwing Darkwing bats. There's ZAPF bats, Zapped bats. But there's also like I guess a bunch of bats together would just be Bat Company. Like I guess a bunch of these bats kind of together is just a Bat Company, I guess. If there are any phrases or whichever that it's like, oh no, like these bats are exactly this thing because it's not in game, it's this, then. Anyways, moving on. So, I'm going to call them the twin bats, and if I'm incorrect, then someone can correct me. That's perfectly fine. So, the twin bats, along with a number of other bats, just start ripping through people, and it's pretty awesome. It's pretty legit. It's pretty thumbs up, if you know what I'm saying. So, so we are to push on, and we are to go to focus on Belmont, or Trevor Belmont, the last of the Belmont people. So, Trevor Belmont is to be at a bar somewhere, and so there's a bunch of bar patrons that are to be complaining and moaning and groaning about the Belmont family and how those like rich sods were kind of the worst thing to happen in this city, in this place, in this whatever. And so Trevor is just like, oh god, like if anything, I guess I should be hiding my crest and try to like avoid getting noticed in this bar, because these people are just going on and on about how the Belmonts are just like the worst and how they're so like they might have brought any kind of evil to this town and all kinds of things, like all kinds of wild tales. So eventually Trevor is to go and try to figure out where his bag of money is to give to this this bartender, so that way he can get another round. And once he is to go and deliver his coins to the bartender, all of a sudden one of the bar patrons is to notice that he is to have a Belmont crest on his chest. To where immediately we have this guy accusing this guy, like, hey, is that a Belmont crest? And Trevor is like, well, this is an old shirt. Like, if anything, like, I'm not really a Belmont. Like, what are you talking about? And so like this guy's asking for his name and all kinds of things, and then Trevor is just like, fine, like I'll tell you, like I'm Trevor Belmont from the Belmont clan, like what do you want, like I don't care, like like what do you have to say about like my family or my whatever, I don't care. Like, dude, we were like hated and flogged and everything out of anywhere. So, like, what do you have to say about my family that I haven't heard a million times over? And so it just gets to the point where these people just hate a Belmont, and then once they are to find one, immediately they are to want to go and just beat the crap out of one. So this this one guy is getting into Trevor's face, and so reasonably, like Trevor kind of fights these people in a style of a bar fight. Like it kind of like it seems like Trevor has kind of different kind of styles for a lot of different situations, but a lot of times I think Trevor is to also like when nothing else is working, like he like tries to do that bar fight kind of style where he hits people in the nuts. And so really Trevor is to take out one of these barmen and take him out pretty easily because this guy is just not he has no skill whatsoever. And so all of a sudden, Trevor is to eventually find himself having to fight everybody off at this bar just because that's what normally happens. Like, even the bartender is just like, I'm going to fight Trevor to see what happens. And so, really, like, it's kind of pointless because, of course, Trevor is going to win this. And so, Trevor gets out of the bar after beating all these individuals. And he yells and tells them, it's like, I hope you bleed out of your butts. Like, I hope you bleed out of your arses. And so Trevor goes to leave and I guess finds a tall tree to rest his weary head out under. So, so Trevor is to eventually go to another town to try and find some remnants of food. And he is to find this seemingly wall of a city that is to be boarded up in front of it, and so Trevor is like, okay, that's like, I guess like somebody really doesn't want me to come into their town. Like it's either somebody or it's either that no one wants to come in or no one wants to come out kind of thing. It's like it's that seems kind of weird. So Trevor goes off to the side to some crap hole, some place that people would be shoving their crap into some pipe. And so Trevor is just kind of upset with himself that he is so desperate for food that he's going through a crap pipe to try to get into a place just to see if there's any food there. So Trevor is to eventually go into the town of this place and eventually ask one person, like, hey, like, what will one gold piece get me? And this woman is like, well, I'll give you like some dried like lamb or goat or something. And so Trevor has that. And Trevor is to eventually start to go throughout the town, and some people are mentioning about this sleeping soldier character that is supposed to help them and supposed to save this town. And so eventually Trevor keeps going on, hearing folk stories and all kinds of stuff from this town, hearing people talk and bicker about where this town is heading and blah, 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 blah. So Trevor makes his way through these dark alleys to find that there seems to be a couple of preachers that are going and attacking some speaker that is to be some elder speaker. So Trevor is thinking like, don't get involved, like Like, I know that's what you would do, but don't get involved. And but Trevor just like stops dead in his tracks to hear what these preachers are talking to this elder about. And basically these preachers are wanting to get rid of all of these speakers because they are to supposedly perform black magic, and they are to like have some kind of like supernatural-ish like connection. And so really like the preachers want to go and take all of these speakers out and try to almost kill them. And so Trevor eventually, once swords are to be drawn against this elder guy, Trevor is to be all baffled and confused why there would be like preachers like busting out blades to anybody. That seems like an odd thing. And so Trevor is to, of course, to defend this elder and not really kill any of these preachers, but just kind of like take them out to where like they will just run off. And plus also, Trevor, much so with the whole numbers game, like of course, like busts out like his uh, busts out like a thing of whip, but like a lot of times it's just like him like fighting with his fist, because really he's not going to try to hurt any of these preachers. So Trevor eventually is to talk to this elder, and so Trevor is to go with this elder to eventually have this elder take uh, take blah, blah, blah. Trevor is to accompany the elder to his home, where they are to talk about what is technically going on. And uh, the elder is to talk with a guy named Arn and talk about what's going on, because these speakers have been waiting for one of their speakers to come back. It seems that one of the speakers had gone on to try to find the sleeping warrior and has gone missing for a number of days. And so they will not leave until they find out what had happened to that one speaker. They're supposed to leave because really no one wants them here, and plus also it's very dangerous. And so Trevor is very much like persuaded. It's like, well, if I go and I find this carcass of this body of this speaker for you, will you guys leave? Because it's very important for you guys to eventually leave. Because either way, people are going to come after you. Eventually, like, the town is going to tie you with all this black magic like stuff and want you all dead, which will actually be the truth. That eventually Trevor will find out that the preachers want all these speakers dead, and eventually he will come to their defense when he is to come back and get back to them after getting the speaker. So Trevor is to go off into this spot where the previous speaker had went into. Like, it kind of feels like the catacombs that are on the very last episode, but it just kind of feels like this like tomb of sorts, or it just kind of feels like a mine of sorts that eventually this eventually Trevor goes into. So while he is to go into this spot and eventually start looking around to seeing stoned individuals, and also seeing that Sypha Belnades, Syntha Belnades, the main Doctor Strange-ish like girl that is to be with the speakers. I'm probably going to butcher her name because it's easy for me to butcher this name because I saw the show, but there's some names where I don't gravitate too easily. So that will probably be it. So Sypha, if that's ill pronounced, it's okay. Go ahead and comment. I've watched go into the Teresa feed. It's great. Um, say that I ill pronounced it. It's great. I, anyways, so Trevor is to go into this spot and to find out the reason why people are starting to turn into stone, and it's because of a stoned-eyed Cyclops that is to be like Medusa. If you look at her, you'll turn into stone, but that's not exactly what this Cyclops does. Like, it uses this like laser beam to come out of its eyes to to go and turn people into stone. But it's the same kind of thing. Like, if you were to like get into the gaze of this Cyclops, you are to basically turn into stone. It's basically the same thing. So Trevor is to try to avoid this stone-eyed Cyclops, and I think that this probably is the best part about this whole first season, is just Trevor trying to take down this stone-eyed Cyclops. Like, it's the funnest part of the show, and it also has like a fight scene that kind of does look interesting. So Trevor is trying to dodge this stone-eyed Cyclops and try to figure out how he can like get to it and try to figure out how to like attack it. And so really his game plan is to eventually like walk on top of Sypha's statue body and fling his knife in the air and walk on Sypha's body, kick the blade, and the blade goes right into the Cyclops' eye, which is to kill this Cyclops immediately, take it down, and then all of a sudden everything that the Cyclops had turned to stone comes back to life. So there was a headless knight that was down there that I guess is to be back to a normal, still headless knight who's still dead. But everything else that I guess had been killed is killed anyways. But Sypha is back to life, and so, or Sypha? I'm going to pronounce it the whole time. The speaker? So the speaker is to come back to life, and so immediately she is to say, like, you know what, I felt like you walked on me. Like, did you walk on me to try to do something? And Trevor is like, well, yeah, like, I had to kill, like, the Cyclops, so yes, I used you as a stepping stool. And she's like, oh, okay, well, like, so, like, Trevor is telling, like, Sypha, like, what's going on, and that he needed to retrieve her to get her back to her family so that way they can leave. And that also Trevor is kind of ragging on this speaker because it's like, God, you're stupid. Like, if anything, you came down here because this whole thing was meant to be a trap. Like, a Cyclops was to be sent down here to try and take everyone out. There is no sleeping warrior down here. It was meant as a trap to lure idiots to come down here to either fight off this Cyclops or to be killed. So you were just another one of those that fell prey to that. You moron. You dumbo. Whichever. So Sypha is to make it back to the Elder, and so reasonably, like, the Elder is like, well, hey, Trevor, like, you can stay here as long as you want. Like, because you saved my, speaker, like, yeah, you can stay here as long as you want, and you can drink everything that you want. And Trevor's like, beer? And they're like, water. And he's like, no. And so Trevor is like, yeah, I'm gonna go somewhere else that actually has beer. And so Trevor is to walk off. And the speaker, the female speaker is like, well, maybe I'll pee in a mug and I'll tell him it's beer. And the elder's like, he saved your life. And, like, the Sypha is just like, he's rude. It's like, so what? Like, he's probably going to be the savior of all of us because there's going to be a prophecy to fulfill. So, we have to show that, we have to show this guy, maybe you know him, Elicard. We have to show him talking to Vlad. And, like, Elicard is going to talk to... I say Elicard because that's the main guy that's in the show Hellsing. Definitely go and check that out. Elicard is, like, a really cool guy, and he laughs a lot, and it's really fun. Like, that guy makes that show fun. Plus, there's also just a lot of interesting visuals, and there's a lot of cool things going on in that. Check out Hellsing. Do it! Do it now! Hit the trigger! Anyways, so... and a lot of people already came maybe from Helsing to come to this, so that's perfectly fine. So, Castlevania, that thing. So Elicard is talking to Vlad about this situation that is to happen where, like, Vlad is consistently going after people. And, like, Vlad is saying that it's like, well, it's for justice for them killing my wife. Like, it's like they deserve what they have to them. Like, I gave them quite a bit of time for them to, like, leave, and they didn't. So, like, I gave them, like, all kinds of mercy, and they ignored all of that. And so Elicard is just like, well, okay then, well, I'm just gonna go off and I'm just gonna go and just sleep in a coffin for probably about a year. And, like, we'll see, like, what happens after that. So, Trevor, before he is to bring back Sypha to the to her people, a preacher is to stop Trevor because they found out that Trevor is a Belmont, and of course, like, everybody hates the Belmonts everywhere, and so really they are, of course, wanting the Belmonts and everyone else who is tied to also the speaker to leave, or they will be purposely killed on this night. And so Trevor's like, okay, well, like, we're gonna get freaking out of here anyway, so I don't care. So Trevor goes and tries to get all the speakers out of this place, and they will not move. They will not leave. And so Trevor's like, well, okay then, well, I am going to stay here and try to defend this town then, and I guess that's what I'm here for. Because Trevor's family's legacy is to fight monsters and vampires, and so he's like, well, I guess I just have to just live up to my legacy. Like, I have to, like, protect this town, and, like, maybe, like, people will respect me more, or maybe people will throw me a free meal or something after I save all of their lives, or maybe they'll just keep treating me like garbage. I don't know. Because really, Trevor is a person that, especially once we get to the last episode, Trevor is a person that is consistently like, I don't care. The thing that he always says is, I don't care. Like, really, Trevor, all he wants is to get a good thing of alcohol in him and to find a good tall tree. And really, when Trevor is to leave with leave away from the speakers, like, he's just like, dude, I'm gonna go and find a thing of beer, and I'm gonna find a tall tree. And so the elder is like, go ahead and, like, find your tall tree, like, and watch this whole entire town get ripped apart and burned. Like, watch the spectacle of this town coming to ruin, while you are to sit there and do nothing. So we have these archbishops and we have these bishops that are coming in consistently. And like I think we had the archbishop who came in on the anniversary of that 1 year moment where Lisa was to die, and everybody bizarrely was getting like showered with blood, and like that was like a really cool visual, and like monsters were just falling out of the sky. I was like, wow, this is so cool. Um, like I was so impressed by that, like such a cool visual of just blood raining from the sky and all these monsters just falling down from it, and eventually going and wreaking havoc through all of these people, while this archbishop was to come in here to celebrate this moment. So now we have towards the very tail end of this show where reasonably uh, the bishop is going and to like mention how I guess the bishop can feel that he's safe in this church, that no monster would make its way here, and so on and so forth. I guess he'd be heavily wrong, because we have the blue fang creature who is to make his way to the bishop, as well as these twin bats making their way into this church to talk to this bishop. And really, the blue fang creature is to thank the bishop for him being here, because really, like, it's kind of like the Halloween door kind of like moment where like we have in that episode where we have, God, what is his name? I can't remember what the guy's name is, but he is a guy who had hated Halloween, and so he wanted to get rid of every bit of Halloween to make it as quiet as a test tube. Fair weather? Fair weather? What the? I've seen that episode like hundreds upon hundreds of times, but like there's names that eventually do escape me. I think his name is Crowley, but I could be wrong. Or no, maybe maybe Crowley might be his second in command. I don't know. It's been so long time since I've watched the Halloween Door, but there's stuff I memorized about it. But anyways, so that guy tried to wipe out all things of Halloween, all costumes, all candy, all everything, and that just unleashed into the sky all these monsters to come on all down and celebrate Halloween, because the treaty that the humans and the monsters had signed years ago is now broken, and now they're back to stay because they are supposed to celebrate Halloween. And now that they haven't done that, now these monsters are here because like they were supposed to keep up this truce and they didn't. And so technically, since this bishop was to cause all this kind of havoc of murder and killing and whatever, then the monsters had came in there and basically said that this bishop had created them because there was no murders, no killing, no causes of witchcraft or anything until these preachers and this bishop started to arrive and accuse so many people of so many of these things, that eventually now these people that have this power are trying to make these monsters to make this all true, to just be like, well, like, you've caused every person that has any magical ability to now need to defend themselves against the bishops, against the preachers, so on and so forth. So that's what caused all these demons to appear. So yeah, like, if they wouldn't have gone into this witch hunt, if they wouldn't have gone into this this consistent accusations of any number of people, they wouldn't have caused all this. They wouldn't have caused all this anarchy. And so we have this blue-fanged creature and monster that is to say to this bishop that your God no longer is protecting you. This church is just a box now. Because really, like, your God is not protecting you. Your God is not going to save you from what is to happen next. And so the blue thing is to give this bishop a kiss, and that is to basically rip off this guy's head and kill him. And so now the people of the town are in all desperation because they're just like, oh my god, like, these monsters are coming full tilt. And so Trevor is going out and kind of setting up people and telling them what to do. Like the long distance guys who have the pikes or the spears, like they're lining them up to be in front, and then the swordsmen are going to be behind, and then like Trevor is gonna tell them what to do. And Trevor is desperately asking for a actual preacher that can kind of bless holy water, and so that way, and get as much sand as they can possibly get, or sand, not sand, salt. So that way, guys can dip their weapons into these buckets of salt, so that way they can try to take out these monsters. So Trevor is telling these guys with the pikes what to do to try to go after the demons when they are to kind of fall next to these people. And Sypha is also putting a wall to kind of like conceal these monsters in, so that way they don't try to escape from these people. So it kind of feels like there's an even kind of playing field here. So, plus also Sypha is using her magic to be able to create these like icicle like weapons to appear from the ground, so these monsters are to die from that. So first the pike people are kind of jabbing into the monsters at first, and then the guys who have the swords are trying to like slice them down, and Trevor is chucking the buckets of water to hit any of these monsters to try to take them down. And also, Trevor is using his whip to try to hit these things too, because evidently his whip is to be like having the ability of taking down vampires or monsters. Like, he has this weapon that can easily try to take these kind of smaller creatures down, but eventually, once he is to get to a kind of much more powerful one, like the bow whip, like kind of does a little bit of damage, but like it really doesn't get the job done exactly. So, but we'll get to that. So Trevor is kind of commanding people. He's dunking water on these monsters, and really it seems that everything is going well. It seems that like Sypha and Trevor are kind of like tag teaming these things and taking these things out. By also, these people of the town are also doing a really good job. So yeah, like they eventually like make it through at least this night. But it is kind of interesting once Trevor is to go and actually have to fight out these preachers like before the night hits. Because the preachers are to make their way into Trevor's spot where the speakers are, and basically they are going and wanting to draw their swords to attack Trevor, and like they're kind of mentioning how in bad of a shape that really Trevor is, that he can't really keep his eyes open, that like like he's just like really out of practice. And even Trevor is even mentioning that in some points of him having to take down certain things, that he's kind of rusty. And so, but this preacher is kind of like telling him, it's like, man, you're the last of a relic of a people, and like, and we're just gonna have to like take you down and kill you, as well as all these speakers, to just prove a point that uh that supernatural things should not exist here. And so we have Trevor, who is having to forcibly like take down certain preachers, but like he doesn't, like he just kind of knocks them down. He doesn't kill a lot of them, but then eventually he is to like go like sword with one of the preachers and force him to bust out his sword so that way everyone in this town can see how bad a preacher is now, that they are just killers and murderers and whatever. So but eventually that leads to have Trevor having to fight all kinds of preachers in this town, but it feels like he mostly tries to knock them out. With the exception of when there are preachers that are shooting out bows and arrows at Trevor, then he goes and he takes a pike or a spear and chucks it at one of the priests to hit him in the head. And then that preacher takes an arrow to one of the other preachers and kills both of them off simultaneously. And then eventually the whole war thing with the monsters start happening, and so like basically they have to put a pen in that to go after the monsters. So after that night is to be done, uh, Trevor and Sypha are to go to this catacombs to try and actually legitimately find the sleeping warrior. And so they are to go throughout this spot, and it seems like there is a bunch of traps in this place. Like it was kind of funny when when Trevor was going through this spot to go to the stone-eyed Cyclops, how once he started to get in there, all of a sudden like the floor was like buckling beneath him, where he like fell down one floor and he was like cat-like reflexes, but then all of a sudden like the second floor like all fell, and then he was just like, well, I guess not. Like I guess he just like fell on his butt. And so like he seemed confident, but eventually this all went horribly awry. So uh so both Sypha and Trevor are going through these catacombs to really say, man, there's like a ton of just traps that are being placed here. And like this kind of feels like the whole like Indiana Jones, like where he's going with the guy who ended up being like Doc Ock in Spider-Man 2, and like the Tobey Maguire one. And like they kind of go throughout this whole entire thing, and there's a bunch of like arrows and stuff like shooting everywhere, and there's this giant ball that comes and attacks Harrison Ford. Like it's kind of like almost set up like that, where there's a bunch of just traps everywhere to get to this person, and eventually once they get there and this coffin is to open up, they are to find Alucard there. And so they're asking him, it's like, well, hey, like, why were all these, like, traps set up for anybody who is to come here to get to you? And Alucard is like, well, that's technically a defense system for someone who is not you. And so Trevor is like, well, okay. It's like, but, like, if anything, you're not a sleeping warrior. If anything, you have fangs, and show them to me. And so Trevor is to forcibly fight Alucard, and Alucard is consistently asking what Trevor's like real true purpose is. Like, why is he doing anything? And Trevor consistently goes with the same usual answer, I don't care. And Trevor and Alucard are to decently find out. Like, Trevor is to immediately trying to use his whip, but that really doesn't work on Alucard. So, like, Trevor kind of has to, like, try to, like, fight from a distance with Alucard. And it seems that eventually, like, it lands both of, like, Alucard on top of Trevor, and Alucard thinks that he is going to beat Trevor, but Trevor has like his a small dagger in Alucard's heart. So it's like, well, like if you think that you're going to rip my throat out, I'm going to kill you in return. So it kind of feels like they stalemated themselves. So also Sypha is to put her like magic against Ellicard to mention like, well, hey, if you kill Trevor, then I will like flame you to death. And so Ellicard is like, oh, okay, so like that's sufficient enough. And Ellicard is to mention that there is some prophecy that a hunter uh, and a speaker of sorts would come to him and have him like um, fight off some threat something someday, and so Trevor is like, oh, so that's why the elder wanted to keep me here for so long. That's why he was keeping me to fulfill this prophecy. Ah, okay. So I was swindled. I was tricked. And but like Trevor had nothing better to do. So really it's just like yeah, he got played, but really it's just so what? Like what better did he had to do besides sitting under a tree and watching his world burn around him? So really that's just how this season one plays out is eventually Trevor, Sypha, and Ellicard going and eventually walking out of this place to eventually head on whatever they are to have head on. I think that the last episode of this might have a like an end credit scene because I think a lot of these do, so people might not be aware of that. But I didn't pay attention to what the end credit scene thing was, and there may not be one for this first season, but I think there might be one for others. So, like, I remember, I think there was an end credit scene for, I think the other seasons because they knew they were going to do other kind of seasons. So if there was an end credit scene for this first season, let me know in the comments below. Because I after like I was like, oh, this is the end. Like I didn't go and look into the end credits. But maybe I will for season two. So so once I do review season two, I'll look back at season one for the end credit scene and just be like, oh yeah, there wasn't one, or there was one, and then I'll cover that once we get to season two. But with that said, I am going to get out of here. Bye everybody. Bye everybody.